We're super happy to have you. Very, you guys will discover some very interesting frameworks that you will cover, and you have a pretty extensive background as a CMO for both small startups and large companies here in the Valley. Plus, you have your own company that you're running. So, and you have a very interesting story as well. So, with that, Dariusz, I'm going to give it to you. I think the last people are coming in here, and it's being recorded. And we look forward to spend the next 2 hours with you.
Thank you. And seriously though, thank you for having me back. It's these are always fun. And I love meeting all of you and the companies that you guys are starting. You're crazy for starting companies. You're nuts, but good for you. And it is an incredible journey that you've started on. And I hope I can play a small role in ensuring its success, because it's a treacherous one. Yeah, I guess speaking of journeys, mine started in Poland. I was born in Poland. We escaped when I was about a year old. I lived in London until I was 5, and then we immigrated to Norway. And I grew up in Drammen and lived there for a while. Ended up on the Norwegian swim team, and which created an opportunity for me to come to California actually on a swimming scholarship. And I love going back to Norway. It's my favorite place, mostly in the summer, spring. And I have visited several times since, but I do love California. And, I guess the main reason I'm still here is, like many of us who go to a new country and think we're going to go home, we meet somebody, and sure enough, I met my wife here. I have 2 kids. My daughter Anna's 23. She just finished her master's at the University of Sussex, and she's looking for user research positions. And my son is 19. He just finished his first year at Loyola Marymount University. So kids are getting a little bit older, but they still want to ski with dad. So that's awesome. So we got out yesterday. This is a journey, and it's really your journey, not mine. But I'm hoping that I'll give you guys some good tools, things to think about that will help you. And yeah, let's get into it. Expectations. So maybe before the words here, we all learn differently, as I've learned through doing 4 of these now, or this is the 4th one. And I've tried to accommodate the learning format a little bit to all that. If there's something that you're not getting, like either understanding or you're not getting value, like I do want to hear about it. Like I would love to hear from you. Like, I get this part, totally know what to do. I don't know what the hell you're talking about when you're talking about this thing. Like, please do give me feedback either along the way, or we all have communication preferences too. So feel free to WhatsApp me or email me or find me on LinkedIn, and I'll show you my contact info here in a minute. But, for today's session, it's actually, sometimes you go into these sessions with trepidation because you're like, oh, they're going to make me do stuff. And, I'm tired, and for most of you, it's in the evening, and I got kids and I got work and I got things going on. So it's obviously hard to be present, but please be present. I'm not asking you to do anything hard today. And the homework, how do you say homework in Norwegian again? Isn't there a word for it?
Hjemmelekse.
Lekse?
Lekse.
Lekse, ja. Lekse.
Not lefse. Something else.
That's what I treat you get.
Lekse, vi ska ha lekse. So there'll be some homework, but you can do it, there's a window of time to do it, and you can do it in your own way, alone or with your team, recommended. But it's on your own time. So, today it's really just listen, learn, ask questions, try to pay attention, try to keep the distractions, your own distractions, at a minimum. If you have an opportunity to chime in on something that is a story that is relevant to what we're talking about, a win or a failure, something you learned, those are always great, and we welcome those. We'll definitely go deep into those in the in-person workshop. But it is just a conversation. And then maybe, you know, I live with this, you know, my Polish pessimism, my Norwegian realism, and my American optimism, but, you know, high hopes and low expectations. I'm hoping you'll find something that's relevant. You don't need to find everything relevant. Like, that's a lot. But, you know, look for one thing that you go like, yeah, that makes sense to me. We need to do that. And so we're going to use the framework or the tool to do that. So look for relevance. And then, you know, one huge disclaimer, you know, I'm by no means an expert on all things. And these frameworks are really designed to be vessels, vehicles, containers for your insights, your experience, your expertise, the things you've learned. You know, you wouldn't be where you were if you weren't, you know, smart in many, many, many ways. And so, you know, I've tried to design these more as like thought starters as opposed to this is how you should do X, Y, or Z. So you won't actually hear me go deep on like search engine marketing and, you know, keyword optimization and bidding and, you know, any of that kind of stuff, which is obviously an important part of a growth strategy. But, you know, this is more about you as CEOs, CMOs, leaders, executives, founders, having a big, broad perspective and a toolkit to make sure that as you build your businesses, you're really thinking about all the things that are important to be designed with intention. So here's an overview of, you know, what to expect. So today it's a virtual session. I'm introducing 3 key frameworks that I've used successfully in my career in Silicon Valley. I've used it for jobs, companies as large as Verizon Media. What was that? 14,000 employees, 7.5 billion in revenue, a marketing team of 130 people, a marketing budget of 178 million. So, you know, you can be scared by that, but I've also used it for Rocket Vodka, which is literally like me and a few people that are kind of running this side hustle. And, you know, maybe more relevantly to many of you, last year I was a fractional CMO for about 6 months for an ad tech cybersecurity company, 50 employees. I know that's a lot larger than where you are right now, but that's still relatively small. 15 million in revenue. And we use the same framework. We had like half a dozen people in marketing. We went through this exercise. We focused on, you know, the 2 or 3 biggest friction points, growth opportunities. And the result of that was, you know, a significant, I can't remember the metric now, but, you know, 27%, 50% increase in MQLs, marketing qualified leads, with 27% less budget. Like stuff like that. Like, you know, so it works in large and small ways, but you have to, the process takes you through identifying the content that's relevant to you, the insights that are relevant to you, the data that's relevant to you. So, so the office work is, you know, I mean, you can start it literally today. So I should have put, you know, final prep is between today and the 16th. I'm making sure to, per OSA's instruction, making sure there's nothing due on the 17th. For some reason, I don't know why. The 17th of May is a non-work day. But anyway, I'm joking. The office work will be due, you know, on the 16th. And really what that is it's me making myself available to you through office hours. If you need help, if you're stuck, if you have questions, check in with me so that you can meet the deadline of the 20th. And the reason for the 20th, which is still 3 days before we actually meet, is so that I can take a look at what you've got and give you any final feedback, you know, in the Google Docs that you'll be creating. And so then we'll have the live session on the 23rd. And, you know, there I hope I'll do, you know, a quick overview of the frameworks, a little refresher reminder. We'll talk about, you know, what was hard, what was easy. And then we'll go through the frameworks, the outputs, the homework for each of you. And, you know, it won't be exhaustive, but it'll be an opportunity for you to share. Here's the thing we focused on. This is what we did. This worked. This didn't work. Here's some things that we learned. And then hopefully collectively by reading those out with each other, we walk away with some, you know, either affirmation that we're on the right track with the things that we're looking at, and maybe some inspiration too for some other things that other companies are doing in your cohort. You know, and so the highest level summary of, you know, what you're going to be able to do is it's a process to identify your biggest challenges and opportunities. And by that, I mean biggest. You know, in a startup, everything seems important. Everything seems urgent. Everything seems all-consuming. But the process is designed to figure out, like, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things that truly matter from a growth perspective to focus on. And therefore, to figure out where to invest, right? You are highly capital constrained, highly resource constrained. And so every dollar, every person you have, you want to make sure that you feel good and that they feel good about working on the highest impact opportunities for growth. And you'll get into, you know, what to do, who's going to do it, how are we going to take action on and make it happen, execute it, and ultimately ignite growth. So that's kind of, you know, where we're going to go. So just a little bit of context for this whole concept of igniting customer-led growth and my philosophy on all of this, having, you know, run these frameworks now for at least half of my career. I mean, the first half of my career, I was definitely making a lot of mistakes and learning. And then the frameworks themselves started, you know, kind of taking shape over the last half of my career. And then I did the Stanford Executive Program back in 2016, which really helped. Like, there was one framework that they were teaching, which I'll get into in a minute, called the PARC framework, that was very helpful in, you know, making sure that as we think about strategies, that we're thinking about every single part of the strategy. And so some of these frameworks are coming out of places like Stanford Graduate School of Business, in addition to my own work experience. So I talk about this idea that, you know, customer growth, it happens through the customer journey and the journey that you take together as a team. You know, it starts with a destination and a deep understanding of the terrain. Like, what is the terrain? So this is why I'm using like a mountain metaphor here, which is like, yeah, we want to get to the top here, but you don't try to get to the top without preparation. And understanding the terrain to get there is crucial. And any journey that is worth taking, like starting a new company, it requires resilience, flexibility, adaptability, obviously a strategy and a plan, the right team, the right people, with clear roles. Like, you want to make sure that, you know, everyone knows this is your job to help us get to the top of the mountain. The right instruments to guide the journey. Like, are you measuring the right things in terms of, are you on track? Are you moving, progressing fast enough? You all know that it's not a straight line, right? Getting up this hill is going to take a lot of twists and turns to get there. And so, you know, no journey worth taking should be taken without a plan, training, and practice as well. And so there's a lot of, there's a section here on routines, which is, you know, training and practicing and doing things so that you don't have to think about them. Like, when you're starting things up, everything is a thought. Everything requires, like, it's a problem and it needs a solution. But the more you can sort of replicate the process or the routine and standardize things sooner, the more time you have for strategy, creativity, partnerships, relationships, impact, right? So you want to take all the boring stuff, all the rote stuff, and try to routine that as much as possible, as quickly as possible. These frameworks, the goal is to equip you for the journey. And by that, I mean, you know, refreshing what you already know. You know a lot. You might have forgotten it, but you know a lot. And so hopefully this journey that we'll go on together will bring back memories, experiences, tools, something you learned at school, something you've learned in a previous job. But it also, teaches some new things, hopefully, that you don't know, and maybe ways to apply the knowledge that you already have in innovative ways so that you can lead your teams on this journey of customer-led growth, right? It's not you. It's like the whole company. It's the 5 of you, the 3 of you, the 10 of you, the 20 of you. So, we're going to go through 3, there's sort of 3, I describe them as diagnostic, growth, and marketing fitness frameworks. They're called—
Hey, Darius, can I sorry to interrupt you. Are you supposed to share the frameworks, the names?
Coming.
Okay, sorry. Yep.
Coming very soon. Well, I'm going to say them and then I'll show them. So one is the 7 A's. So it breaks down the customer journey into 7 logical groupings of steps. The second one is called the Spark, which is more of making sure that you're thinking about all the investments that you need to make, all the things that you need to do around each step of the customer journey. And then the last one is a PST, preserve, strengthen, transform. Again, I'll go into the details here soon. Yeah. The benefits of this process is that because of the way the process is designed, it's like highly collaborative. Like your homework might be limited to you and a couple of people, but if you want to do the whole process, you really want to bring in as many people, the right people, as possible. And this idea of more focus and fewer frustrations, by having these conversations and these in-depth conversations and letting these conversations happen over time, there's a collective knowledge and wisdom that gets created. And so when decisions are made, everyone has been involved with the process to get to those decisions. They understand why something is approved or not approved. These frameworks should help you create a common language, because everyone's like using 7A, Spark, PST, whatever, it helps your team communicate much more quickly. You know what we're talking about. When we're talking about A3, we're talking about amplification and brand building and awareness and social media. Like everyone understands that pretty quickly. The process also empowers everyone on the team and allows you to extract everyone's best ideas and practices. Like so often, even in small companies, information sits in silos, whether that's in somebody's brain or inside of a functional team. And so through the process that we'll go through, you'll see that we're able to extract everyone's great ideas or practices that they've proven somewhere else. There's plenty of room for innovation and discovery of new ideas and solutions. This is not, like I said, this is how to do keyword marketing with Google, right? So there's still opportunity for discovering new tactics, new tools, and innovation and creativity. And I've found that because of the way this process is done, the teams that I lead, they tend to have higher, what I call customer IQ and EQ, because it is called igniting customer-led growth. And so that's really important. And then ultimately, the benefits of going through this process is that you will see growth and your teams are going to thrive. So there were 3 frameworks: 7 A's, Spark, and PSTs. I'm going to just go do a quick overview, and then we'll go deep into each one of them. But the 7 A's, the philosophy behind the 7 A's is that, there's the construct of the funnel that we've all seen. You can map it a lot of, very differently. But the idea here is that, you reach prospects at the beginning of the funnel, and then, you turn them into a customer, and ultimately, you have a repeat frequent customer who might even love your brand. And so the steps that I've identified, everyone has a different way of sort of describing the customer journey, but the 7 A's were mine. But the idea is that if you can find friction in each step of the customer journey and then go, well, among all of the steps, the biggest friction is in A4 or A6, it allows you to very quickly focus on, like, let's not worry about awesomeness, which I'll get to. We need to focus on acquisition. Let's focus on that, put programs against that, put investment against that. And then later, let's tackle the next growth opportunity or friction area. And so the philosophy is that, by finding friction, removing friction in the customer journey, you can accelerate growth and turn, a very narrow funnel into a pipe, right? In a perfect world, everyone who's aware, just drops in and becomes a customer and an advocate, right? That's the nirvana that we would want to see here, right? The funnel is it's a funnel. It shows that people, get choked off, or that people fall out of the process because they got stuck, or something wasn't relevant, or whatever. So the goal of this process is to audit every single step of the customer journey, find friction and growth opportunities, and ultimately put investments and strategies into the specific areas that you think have the greatest potential for growth, however you're defining that in your strategy. Growth could be it could be revenue growth initially, it could be customer growth, it could be product evolution. All those things will come out of this process. So that's the first one, the 7 A's. And we'll double click on all these. Because they build on each other, kind of like you'll see how it'll come together as a Rubik's Cube. So bear with me. But the 7 A's breaks down the customer journey. That's the simplest thing. Then when you're thinking about investments, everyone talks about strategy. What is strategy? To me, strategy is what are you investing in and what are you not? That's literally the simplest. And you can call it strategy, you can call it tactics, you can call it whatever. It's what are you investing your time and your money and your people into? What are you putting your intention into? That's your strategy, right? Someone says doing nothing is a strategy. Yeah, because you're putting time into not doing anything. That is a strategy. It doesn't work. So therefore, you want to be very clear and intentional about what are you investing in, what are you not. People is who's the brightest, and fittest for each role. And that's not just sort of a functional conversation of we need marketing people and engineering people and AI people and analysts and it's, do you have the right disposition, personality for the role? The example I use here is, if you're running Rocket Vodka as a startup, or Rewind, as a startup, you can take more chances and make more mistakes. But if you're Boeing, you need to keep planes up in the sky, and not take chances and risks. And so the person that you hire to code your software for Boeing, or code your software for a startup, is very different, right? You want the coder for Boeing to be super disciplined, structured, rigorous, high quality code. You want them to be a little anal. Whereas for a startup, you want your coder, of course you want them to write great code, but you also need them to be able to switch gears. And so we're wired differently. So you need to make sure that the person you're bringing on board, even psychologically, is ready for the startup journey, because you'll see misfits. Alignment is how do you align and collaborate across teams? So the alignment one is very intentionally thinking about, let's say you're in product development. Who else do you need to collaborate and work with to achieve and do your job and achieve your goals? And what are you actually doing to align with other teams? Sometimes that's easily set up, right? Product talks to engineering. But are they talking to marketing? Or are they talking to finance? Making sure that there's a 360 view of aligning everyone who needs to work together on something, whether they're in the team or not. Actually, this step is the most important in teams that are not together, meaning marketing versus product. Less of an issue for startups. I see a question.
Yes, I was just wondering because for us especially, and I know some other companies here are quite early stage. So I was wondering, how do you make sure that you can achieve this when you're, for example, just 2 or 3 people?
Well, that's easy, right? That's that's the point of this, which is that's easy today, right? You might have a coffee together. you probably sit next to each other. You're probably calling each other, texting each other, slacking each other all the time. These frameworks are designed to make sure that you're thinking about these things today and tomorrow. So my goal here, that's a good question, is to make sure that things that you take for granted as small teams, as you start scaling up, you think about those things too. But I'll show you a practical example of how it actually does come together, even for a small team. With routines, routines are basically how do you make decisions and get work done? That's the simplest way to think about it, routines. Some people call it process. That word is a little bit loaded in not a good way, but it's really like, how do you take things that, you know, should be quick and easy to do and make them quick and easy, or things that need to be repeated, make them as quick and easy as possible. But being clear about how do you make decisions. People just make decisions, especially in small teams. When you're 3 to 5 people, you make decisions through text or Slack, right? And you're not even aware perhaps that it's a decision. But as you add the 6th person or 7th person, especially if you add them a year after you've been formed, even one additional person, they come in and like, I don't know how to get a decision made. You know, I've been talking to so-and-so, I've been pushing so-and-so, and they don't understand how you make decisions. So like being clear about how you make decisions up front and defining that is important. How much, you know, bureaucracy do you put into process? Like when you're small, like there shouldn't be a big review and approval process for most things, right? And that's good, but you want to be intentional about that, because some people are like, they might come to a startup from a big company and without intention, like map out this big T&E travel and expense report approval process, which for a 3 to 5 person company makes no sense whatsoever. So this is all about intentionality. Small or large doesn't matter. These are things that you need to think about. And maybe the thought is one time like, we're too small, this is not relevant to us. Next thing. And then culture, you know, that's a big one that everyone defines a little differently, and I do too. I try to simplify culture to, what do you high five each other for, or what do you punch each other in the arm for? And that could be like achieving a revenue target, could be something you high five each other for. It could be a behavior. You know, we did this as a team. It could be a value. You know, we value open and transparent communication. So, but it's like, that's what culture is. It's like, it's the metrics that matter, the ones that meaning you're going to celebrate those, as well as the behavioral stuff. Okay, gotcha. And then the last one is the PST. And I'll show you how to pull all these things together. But I stole this one from the CEO of Verizon, Hans Vestberg, Swedish guy. He came into Verizon after Lowell McAdam had run the company for 20 years and created the most respected carrier on the planet at the time. And so Hans comes in as the new CEO and is inheriting this incredibly successful venture, profitable venture, massive revenues. And every other carrier around the world, even though Verizon is predominantly a domestic carrier here in the US, looked to Verizon for how it operated. And so you coming in as a new CEO, how do you transform an organization that has that much success? Excuse me. And his framework was, again, I think it scales down very nicely. Preserve, strengthen, transform. So there are things that a big company does and a small company does that you want to make sure that you preserve. It's good. It's working. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. It's easy to move on to things that are working. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, it's not working anymore. So preserve is like, keep doing it, continue doing it, protect it, maintain investment, keep that person on it. keep that $1,000, $10,000, $10 million on it. It's working. Don't screw it up. Be intentional about making sure that it keeps working the way it's meant to be. Strengthen, we all understand. Optimize, fix, improve, increase investment. Right, that one's relatively straightforward. But he added transform, which was his change management, which for you today isn't, you're probably transforming every single day. But for him, it was reimagine or start new investments. So start something brand new because we weren't doing it, a new business, a new way of doing things, or stop, kill things. It's not part of our strategy going forward. We're going to stop investment in this thing and that thing because it's not going to be part of our company going forward. Or we're pursuing the right opportunity, the right idea, but the way we're going about it needs to be transformed. So we need to think differently about it. And so, I think for translating that to you, you actually might be living in transform every day, but at the risk of losing what to preserve. I think strengthening everyone kind of like lives in, has the right approach to that. But it's very easy as a startup to take the things that are working for granted, and then you move on to the next thing and oh crap, we lost a customer, or our system went down, or we lost an employee, or whatnot. So those are the three. And then there's one, it's not necessarily a framework, but as we go, there's sort of the audit step of the process where we'll use all these tools. And then there's the action step where you start making decisions. And so in this auditing step, and I'll cover this in more detail. In each of those A's, in each step of the customer journey, you want to look at where are we today and what are the metrics that matter? What are we doing in A2 or A3 or A4? What is the inventory and list of things that we're doing for amplifying our brand? What are the things that we are doing to acquire customers? What are the things that we're investing time and effort into to activate a new user and turn them into an active user or turn them into a paying customer? What are the things that we're doing to turn an active user into using us on multiple platforms? They might be using us on iOS only. How do we get them, to use us on web also? Or they're only using this part of our suite, but we want them to use these other capabilities as well. What's working, what's not working? This is the audit, and the way this happens is through Google Docs. And again, I'll show you like templates for what this actually looks like. But that's sort of a key part of the auditing process. And then, so that's the audit. And then the action step is these things start coming together. So let's say you pick A4. A4 is acquisition. Where and how do you acquire customers? You first do the audit, on A4. Acquisition. Where are we today? What are the metrics that matter on customer acquisition? What are we doing for customer acquisition? What is the inventory of all the things that we are doing on customer acquisition? Could be website stuff, could be sales activities, could be emails that we're sending, could be events that we're attending, could be we're actually doing some SEO, we're actually doing some SEM, we're only doing Instagram ads. Like wherever you are doing, like you just take inventory of all the activities that you're doing under one of the A's. In this case, I'm saying A4, acquisition. And there's metrics that get pulled together. There's metrics that are looked at. And then there's a conversation about what's working and what's not working. And then you start shifting gears into, all right, so for acquisition, what are we doing today that we need to preserve? What are we investing in today that we should preserve? What should we strengthen? What should we transform? Same with people. Like, this is a people decision. In your case, you're not going to be talking so much about preserve because you probably you need to preserve everybody that you have on the team. But again, as you grow, you want to think about like, okay, do we need to preserve everybody on the team today? Who needs to be strengthened and who needs to be transformed? And that transformation could be, oh, we need to add more bodies to the team because we don't have them for this thing. Or they're just not working out. We need to let them go. And so you do the same for alignment. You know, who do we work with? How do we structure the virtual teams? How will we make decisions to get work done? What are the culture metrics, soft metrics that matter? And so the output of so the homework exercise basically is you pick one of the A's, you do the audit, you ask these questions, pull this data, and then you start completing this one pager. So let me pause there for a minute. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to like, okay, what are the 7 A's? Like I've given you some examples, but let me walk you through each one of them. And what I'll try to do here is I'll try to toggle between the framework conversation and I'll show you an example. I think I'm going to use EDB this time, which is the last company that I worked at. Just so that you can sort of see like how messy it is, but also how simple it is. So remember this framework, right? 7 A's, breaking down the customer journey. So A1 is audience. Who's our customer today and who should it be tomorrow? What are we doing to make sure that we know our customers by heart? I'm bringing this one up because this one all people take for granted. They think they've sort of honed in on the customer, but they're not necessarily doing anything consistently to make sure they're close and intimate with the customer. And as the customer needs are changing, that they're getting that feedback, that data. You know, when you in the early days, you might run a survey before you start a company. You might talk to people. But how do you operationalize and structure things for the future? How do you make sure that customer insights is in the DNA of the company from day one? Your next hire and your next hire and your next hire, like how do you make sure that they continue to stay as connected to the customer as you might be? But remember, as a startup founder, you're probably going to be closest to the customer. And so if you take this one for granted, you're going to find yourself with a team of people who join an exciting idea of a company and cool technology. You know, they might join because there's some cool coding challenges, and so the AI engineer you hire is super excited about the coding challenge. But who are they coding for, and why are they coding? So the questions under A1 are not just about like who's the customer and what are the pain points, but like who is going to be responsible for making sure that every person in the company knows your customers by heart? What are those people going to be doing? What is that one person going to be doing? Whether it's you, the CEO, or the CMO, or the head of product, or somebody, what are they going to do to make sure that they collect customer data and feedback and insights and share that and infuse that into the rest of the company? And so it's just making sure that you have, you know, tools and programs and surveys and email programs and conversations or events, focus groups set up so that you have this ongoing, strategic, thoughtful intake of customer insights into you and your team. And of course, you know, the question that I don't know the answer to yet is, you know, how are we going to use AI to augment insights? I attended the Qualtrics X4 Customer Experience Management Summit last week, and they're adding, you know, so they're basically a customer insights and experience platform. They're adding AI that makes it very easy for anyone in a company that's a customer of Qualtrics to go into Qualtrics and basically get answers out of the Qualtrics platform for your unique company customer data. So that's a way to use AI to augment insights. There's a company called Rev AI that we use at EDB to help find Postgres-ready developers. Postgres is the leading open source database. And any company that was hiring open source Postgres developers was a good target for us to go after. So we used AI for those kinds of applications. But, you know, AI is transforming everything. So I've added that as a question in this step too. Does that make sense? Like starting with the customer and this idea that, you know, of course, as startup founders and teams, you're going to be relatively close to your customer, but, you know, as your team grows, even by one or two more, making sure that they are as close and intimate with your customer as possible, and maybe as relevant. You know, maybe your accountant, your tax accountant doesn't need to know your customer, but does that A1 idea kind of make sense to everybody? Hey, Sophia.
Hi. I would like to know if it's possible a bit of more specific tools that we can have to understand the customer and the insights of the customer, if there's any strategy or tools that we can use for that purpose. A bit more specific example.
How are you doing it today? Like who are your customers today and how do you stay close to them?
I started the company very recently, like 2 weeks ago, so I'm still learning about that. But that's why I'm also would like to understand more in terms of strategy, which tools we can use to achieve better our customers. If you have any.
Remind me, what's the name of the company again? Factiverse?
Factiverse, yes.
And do you have a sense for who your customer is or should be today?
Yes, it's hi. It's media first and foremost, and then we're looking into financial sector, especially like financial analysts that need to verify a lot of information.
And are you using any tools at all today?
For product or for sales?
Well, just how do you know what those customers might be interested in or what problems you're going to solve for them? Have you talked to customers?
Yes, we've been talking to customers for 3 years, so we've done a lot of R&D. We also use usertesting.com to gather and run tests on every new feature or like all of our things we develop. And we use HubSpot to reach out, and generally, like, we talk to people all the time, but it's been a huge change in their perception from when we started talking to them in 2021 and today, because of the changes in the AI. So when we started talking to them in 2021, they all like were, you know, fake news is not a problem, and we're not going to use AI. We don't trust anything. And now they are starting to implement. So for us, it's really great momentum, but it was a lot of changes in customers' minds.
You know, that's really, to me, that's fascinating because that shows you the importance of staying close to your customers. Like with AI, your customers, all of our customers' needs and expectations are changing very dramatically. And so how do you stay close to them? I love those tools. The obvious ones are, you know, SurveyMonkey. You can use Google surveys, right? If you have an email list of people, I have found a great way to, you know, for smaller businesses like Rocket Vodka, like I just go talk, you know, I'll go to a restaurant and I'll just talk to the chef or the owner and just have conversations. So there's like very lightweight ways of doing it. And then, you know, as your company scales, you know, you do, you know, you're making sure that you've got Google Analytics on your website, right? That's another tool to use for making sure you understand where traffic's coming from. Qualtrics, you know, top of mind for me because I was at the conference last week. They have a lot of social listening and capabilities where, you know, you can, you know, set up the monitoring of what people are saying about your product or service. Again, this is, you know, probably as you scale up and get bigger. Events is another great place to, hear like themes of customer insights. And then of course you've got your Gartners of the world where, there's tons of, paid reports, but also free stuff, newsletters, articles. I don't know, does anyone, here in the TINC group, anyone else have like, what's the favorite tool that you have or use that you found the greatest value in that we haven't talked about already? Any examples of tools that you all are using for customer insights and intimacy?
For tracking visits to your website, we've been using one called Dealfront recently, which we found is really good. Telling us they can actually identify which company is visiting your website, which has been good for filling top of funnel for us as well.
Yeah, so there's go ahead, someone else. As I said, I'm going to actually stop sharing this document and I'm going to go into I'm going to try to show you kind of yeah, here. So this is, these are all the frameworks. And so here's an example of how we did it at EDB. So the first step is the audit, and then the second step is the actions. So we created, this is a larger company. This is a marketing team of 40 people. So, bear with me. This team for A1 for you might just be you and your CMO, or you and your product chief, or your entire team. But there's a team that you assemble, and then you start the audit, which is where are we today? So the team basically just started listing like how many current customers do we have? What's our churn? What's our downsold customers? What's our expansion? Who are the target market accounts we're going after? How many sales assigned accounts? Like everything, it's just a data dump of everything that we had available. In your case, it might be very short. But it's like, where are we today? Just pull relevant data together on where are you today with your customers. And if you don't have customers yet, then you're not far, right? But what data do you have about your customers or prospects? And then we took an inventory of like, what are all the investments? And again, this is Google style, so it was not curated, it was not edited, it was not perfect. It was just a dump of like, okay, well, we have our 5 personas. We have this qualification form to capture buyers and their requirements. We have this global implementation tracker that customer success has in place. We run QBRs with customers to get data. We have a health score for customers and a V1 of that launch. So we just took inventory of everything. And then we asked the team what's working. So we talked, so they identified like the customer success team is actually well aligned with sales when it comes to talking about customer status, situations, problems, opportunities. What's not, right? And this, everyone has a long what's not working list. Whether you're a small or a big company, you can put a lot of things in there. But we just didn't have anyone doing user research for a large company. Like nobody. Like this is like almost 1,000 employees, and nobody in the company had the job of customer insights or user research. The culture under A1 was described as survival, not experimentation. We had no clearly defined customer journey. We didn't really know what the pain points were. We would ship a lot of features that were often generated from competitive studies, but we didn't actually have any deep known customer pain points that we were focused on. No single customer data platform for smaller companies. You don't need that, obviously, but you want to build that from day one at some point. There's no dissemination of knowledge or findings. So this is what I'm talking about. This is true for a big company and a small company. You take for granted that you know the customer, but then the next employee you hire, they don't have the 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years of experience with customers that you have. But because you think, you assume that they do and they don't. So how do you make sure? So, so just another way of thinking about an example. And then, when we get into the frameworks, you can kind of see, okay, now based on that, what are the actions that we should take? I'll come back to this in a second. Let's continue with the overview of the frameworks, and I'll try to summarize everything succinctly. But Sophia, did that kind of help?
Yes, it was very helpful. Thank you.
I think in your case, it's going to be, given how early you are, it's going to be, online research, meet with prospects, go to events where they might be hanging out, follow them on social media, even just let them, let their stuff show up in your feed, whether that's LinkedIn, even Instagram. Just follow them. When I started Rocket Vodka, that's what I did. I followed literally thousands of vodka brands, spirits brands, alcohol brands, distributors, makers, individuals, bartenders, and I just let their stuff show up in my feed as sort of a passive way of staying connected to who my customers and competitors might be, in addition to doing, conversations with bartenders and owners and people in the industry. All right, oh, no. Sorry. Slideshow. Okay. So customers. A2, awesomeness. Awesomeness is really two things. It's positioning and product. But I need an A. So I went with awesomeness. But what is our unique awesomeness, value proposition, and product positioning to those audiences that we've talked about? Are we clear on that? Are those words clearly written and defined with intention? Are we clear about what is awesome about our product today? We often build products and write lots of lines of code that are wasted because nobody asked for it. So being clear about, and honest with ourselves about product truth. What is awesome about our product today, and what should be awesome about it tomorrow? It's very easy to add the next line of code, to add the next feature. But if you're not clear on A1, your audience, you might not be so clear about where the product needs to go tomorrow. What are the problems and pain points and pleasure points that we're solving for people? This one's crucial, especially for a startup, an early startup. If you're not clear on this, you're going to waste a lot of time and money. And so that, relevance for someone, whether that's a consumer or an employee, whether that's B2C or B2B, you have to solve a problem for someone. You have to be relevant to someone in their daily life. And that clarity is really important. The jobs to be done framework is a very cool framework for this. What are the jobs to be done? Like, what job is the customer delegating to us to do for them? Is the job of entertaining me, as TikTok does for lots of teenagers? Is the job to give me, get my books closed faster? Is the job to help a media person know what's truth, what the facts are, what's not fake news? What are the jobs to be done? And of course, based on all that, what's the evolution? But A2 is, in the simplest form, it's what is our positioning? How do we describe our products? How are we relevant to someone in their daily life? And then it's also product. What is the actual product that we're delivering to them? A3 is amplification. You would know this as brand awareness, brand building. Things like social media fall under here. attending events, speaking at events, presenting at events, emailing prospects, calling prospects before they become customers. There's a bunch of stuff, but how do we amplify what makes us unique and relevant? Content marketing, or content, not marketing, content, period, full stop, is the way that people discover new brands and products more so than anything else. In the old days, you could just buy a big TV campaign and, that's how you build brand awareness. That's not, people do that too, of course, still today. But the number one way that people, whether they're a B2C or B2B person, they discover new brands and products through content today. Content that's, yes, posted, shared on social media, through media platforms, but it's really through content. So what's your content creation strategy? Through the customer's lens or the prospect's lens. I know a lot of us write white papers. Those are great for highly technical audiences. But that's not the only way that people want to consume content, right? Video is huge. You can make a much bigger impact with video these days than ever before. And videos are relatively easy to create. They don't have to be super polished, right? But what's your content strategy? And then how do you think about industry or cultural movements and moments that matter for your customers and your company? So how do you create content, either, because it's how-to content or need-to-know content or do-it-yourself content or white paper content, but also how do you create content on the fly when things happen in your industry? Like in our case, in the vodka case, just to have a little fun, when we saw the French lavender cocktail was trending on social media, we did a post for a Rocket Vodka French lavender cocktail. Small example, but like, how do you stay in tune with what is trending, what's happening, the conversations, and how do you insert yourself into that conversation with content that's relevant to people? What do you want people to think, feel, and do? How do you think about your content from that perspective? And of course, now your marketers should have amazing tools through AI now to create more, better, faster content. Take any blog post that you wrote a year ago, run it through the AI, ask it for an update, and now you have a fresh blog post. Take a white paper that you wrote, ask it to edit it, tune it for a specific audience. And now you have a custom white paper for financial advisors that might have been written for a generic audience before. So AI is obviously transforming a lot of this stuff. A4 is probably where most of you live, right? The purpose of business is to create and keep customers. And so how do we acquire customers? Where do we reach our target audiences? It's not the same for everyone. It's not the same. There are some broad-based platforms and tools like search engine marketing and Google keywords. But for some, it's still just going to be events and shaking hands and talking to people. But this is probably where most of you spend most of your time is, once you've identified who your customer is, you got a product built. All right, we got to sell now. So all the sales activities fall under this. All the e-commerce or website activities fall under this. Lead generation activities fall under this. Demand generation, getting people to your website, getting them to sign up, getting them to buy. All those activities fall under A4. A5, so we'll spend more time on A4, but A5 is one of the most important and under invested in or under considered steps, which is, okay, now we've got a user or a customer, but how do we make them active? Like if they've bought something from us, we want them to use it. the number one thing I've learned in my entire career is that if people buy something or sign up for something and they don't use it, they're going to churn because they clearly don't find value in it. And so this is a crucial step. If you can't figure out how to get someone who signed up to your website or paid you something, and then you can't get them to actually use what they paid for, they're not going to keep paying much longer. So how do you onboard users? How do you educate them? How do you engage them? And that could be product-led growth. That could be in-app stuff. It could be emails that you send. It's all your customer success activities, but it's, making sure that people understand what they bought, that and that they are using what they bought or what they signed up for. A6 is adoption. So this is sort of the next step from activation, which is, okay, now you've got someone who's purchased your product. They're using it. They're actually quite happy with it. But, for you, that's just one part of the journey. You might have additional upsells that you want them to buy. So how do you design those experiences, whether that's in your product, in your dashboard, in app, through emails? How do you get people thinking about, oh, I should buy this too. I should add this thing. I should add this feature to my product. So upsells to more premium experiences is one part of A6, driving adoption. Cross-sells, meaning, okay, so they might have downloaded your mobile app, but I know from experience that when people use your mobile app and your website, they're going to be more sticky, less likely to churn. And they're going to enjoy and love your brand more. Or vice versa. You got them to sign up on the website, but they're not using your mobile app. So, and this one is crucial for long-term retention. And then lastly, if you've done all those things right, then you've got A7, you got advocacy. Not only do you have someone who's aware of you, someone who's signed up for you, someone who's paying you, they are so much enjoying your product or service, your experience, your solution, that they're motivated to tell a friend, to tell a colleague, to tell a coworker, to tell a peer at another company. But what's important about this step isn't just sort of letting that happen, but how do can you design experiences to encourage, facilitate viral and verbal word of mouth? So that's the 7 A's. Right? Starting with the top of being clear about, and the first two are kind of internal, right? Audience is mostly a conversation internally about who's our customer, what pains them, how do we make sure we stay close to our customer and get insights, feedback, data, passively or intentionally. Awesomeness is positioning and product, again, mostly internal. And then amplification is when you start talking to those customers, those prospects, with your positioning, with your messaging, with your products, all the way through activation or acquisition, activation, adoption, and advocacy. So that's the 7 A's. So I'll pause there. And given I've been talking for over an hour, let's take a couple of questions and then maybe take a 5-minute break. And then I'll come and close and we'll finish things up. But does this sort of framework for just thinking about how to dissect the customer journey, does that make sense? Are there steps that I missed? Am I right in thinking that most of you are sort of in A4 territory, like acquisition is your biggest growth opportunity or challenge? Or are some of you still asking yourselves questions about, I'm not sure we know who our customers should be, actually? Give me some thoughts.
Yeah, I think this has been very useful, and I look forward to kind of going into depth for the different days and kind of deciding which one it'll be. for us at Factorverse. I think it's we're still even though we have clients and we are kind of in a given space, it's still we still see that there's, for example, a need in other industries, especially when you look at factuality in a chatbot, for instance, which might be more in the compliance space. But yeah, I think this resonates a lot with me, and I've also worked quite a bit with kind of gamification of and designing user journeys with that at back of mind, and I think this makes a lot of sense so I look forward to working more detail with it.
Yeah, I think for us, we're definitely between A4 and A5 as well. What really rings true is how to get customers more activated as well. We're selling a B2B platform, and sometimes getting the right person in front and using the tool is what we find the hardest part to do, or sometimes the people that should be using it don't even know that they bought it, you know. So it's a struggle that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, B2C and B2B are kind of different there, right? Because from a B2C perspective, in some ways, the decision maker is just the user, typically. Maybe, you know, and the user is the decision maker. You know, the most complex it could get is the decision maker is the mother of the family who's buying something for the entire family, and so the family is the user. But you know, in B2C, it's a little bit more straightforward. Whereas the buyer user experience for B2B tends to be more complex because you got the buyer and the user and the influencers, right? So in a B2B world, you might be selling to the CTO, but the users are the developers, and the influencers and improvers are the CEO and the CFO. So it's like a much more complex ecosystem. I found that A1 thinking actually helps you think through that entire ecosystem as well, because they all have unique needs, not as a user, but they have needs that you need to consider. If you're not aware of what the CFO's needs are, they're going to be a blocker. If you're not aware what the CTO's needs are, they're going to be a blocker. And then, yeah, even if you get past the sale, you've got the CEO, the CTO, and the CFO all aligned on something. If their developers haven't been part of the process, and they're like told to use this new tool, and they're like, what is this tool, and how do I use it, and why should I use it? And so the B2B ecosystem for A1 is much more complex. And I find a lot of companies get stuck in the selling process because they didn't do their homework on A1. And they're like, I don't understand why we can't, you know, get past, you know, why our deal closing rates are so low, why our time to close are so long. And it's because like you might have built a perfect product for the user, but you haven't thought about the entire customer journey for that user, who might be bringing you in, but you haven't made that job easy for them. So the CTO might bring you in, but if you're not helping the CTO manage their CFO or their CEO or their director of IT, if you haven't thought through all of that, you're going to run into problems. So anyway, A1 really applies to the entire ecosystem of audiences inside of a company. For B2B, not just the end user. Yeah, Scott.
I just want to say it's been really great, Darius. Just some reflection on our side at Intuitu. It's probably starting around A2, A3. Our company, we're a deep tech company, we're a climate tech company, so we have infrastructure and kind of boots on the ground before actually selling, if that makes sense, from like say an application side of things where you could have, you know, acquisition fast and leads and sales. So focusing for us on the next week or two on A2 and A3, I think are really interesting, especially what you say here on A3 with kind of what are the industry and cultural movements and moments that matter for your customers and the company. So us, for example, is a topic of heavy rain, for example, or flooding, or these types of things is an interesting time for us to be. Yeah, that's where the pain usually is, if that makes sense. Otherwise, if it's, for example, if rivers are not moving, it's not that interesting, for example. So I think this is very cool with A3 at least.
Good. All right. It's 10:50. It's 15 after for all of us, wherever we are. Why don't we take a short break and come back at 20 minutes after? You're welcome to mute everything. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, and then we'll regroup in 4 or 5 minutes. Stretch, walk around the house, do whatever you need to freshen up, and then let's keep going. Share my screen here. Too many. Here we go.
Dariusz, do you see some of the questions? Oh, I think maybe she logged Anastasia. I think Jackie's still on. Anastasia dropped off, but she was asking about a little bit more early stage startup. Can you see the chat when you share?
Yeah. I can, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you addressed it and I missed it.
Let me get to that at the end.
Yeah, sure.
I kind of addressed it, but I want to make sure we cover everything. All right. Should I assume I've got quorum for everyone being back? I can't really see here.
I think it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So
and
again,
just yeah, now we don't see your full screen, just FYI.
Correct. Yes.
Yep.
Now you do. Yes. All right. So again, today is an overview of the frameworks. So it's and it's the buckets that matter more than the specific content within them. And we've covered the 7 A's, which again just sort of, provides you with some structure and ways of thinking about how could you break down the customer journey into logical groups. And the reason for those groupings also are we tend to work in functional teams, even in small companies, like, okay, he's got product and she's got marketing and whatever. And what I'm trying to do here too is everyone thinks about the customer journey. It's not like marketing only or engineering or like every, I don't know what that effect was on my, my Zoom. Every team plays a role in the customer journey. And so by looking at it from the inside out to the customer, you're more likely for the company to become more customer centric and more likely for customer-led growth to happen. So that's the reason why we think about it this way. Like everyone needs to understand who the customer is, and we should be clear about awesomeness and positioning and product, because that is a marketing and product activity with engineering and design. Amplification is often a collaboration between product, creating, writing content, sometimes engineering and research and marketing. Acquisition is a combination of activities that pull together marketing people and sales people and sometimes customer success people and website designers and content creators. So, the goal of the framework is just to sort of help you go, okay, well, who's on A1 and who's on A2 and, thinking through that. And again, with the Spark, strategy, people, alignment, routines, and culture, again, they're just, components of things to think about, right? When you think about acquisition, there's a strategy component to acquisition. Where are we investing our time and money and people to acquire customers? Who are the people that are going to be doing that? How are we lighting everybody on goals and expectations and collaboration? What routines are we going to put in place for customer acquisition? What culture, what metrics are we going to put in place to value whether we're doing well on customer acquisition or not? So strategy, people, alignment, routines, and culture, that's what's next. So strategy is really this question of, where have we been? Like, what have we been investing in? Where are we today? And where are we going? What are we going to prioritize and invest in? And crucially, what are we not? And that's not something you have to do every day, obviously, right? Sometimes it's a quarterly exercise. For individuals, maybe it's something you do on a weekly basis. As a company, maybe it's quarterly or twice a year or once a year. So the strategy stuff happens, different times, but it's an opportunity to zoom out and go, okay, like, all right, let's get real. And then what are we going to strive to excel in? What do we want to become great at? And let's make sure that we're investing in that fully, completely, with intention. How will we find and remove friction across the customer journey? That's the strategy question. And then how do we create customer-led growth and build product market fitness? Comes out of the 7 A's. People, what kinds of skills and capabilities do we have and do we need? I think this is very important for CEOs to be thinking about. Like, what's the next hire and the next hire, especially when you're so small, right? If you have money for one more person, do you add one more functional area, or do you add one more person to an existing functional area? Like, those are, huge decisions. But I'm not talking about people per se. I'm talking about skills and capabilities that those people bring, right? If activation is really important, well, what does that require? And who is going to be involved in activation? And is it someone that we have on the team today, or is that, no, that's actually our next hire? Activation is the biggest thing we can do to grow our business. We have customers, they're just not deploying. How do we activate them? Who's that hire? I talked about fitness of each person, and I'm not talking about physical fitness. I'm talking about like fit to the role, fit to the team, fit to your culture, fit to the stage of company. If you're still in a highly churning state, meaning like you have a lot of pivots happening still, you haven't figured out product market fitness, and there's a lot of change, you have to bring people in that can deal with that. But most of us don't think about that. Like, someone looks amazing on paper, like, oh, they worked at Google and Facebook and Apple and Meta, and like, oh, we got to hire them. They're going to be the absolute wrong person probably for, a small startup in many cases. I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when it comes to marketers, because if you're a marketer at Google, like, yeah, you get to spend a lot of money and do big things, but what have you done as an individual to actually grow the business? Not much that you can do at a place like that. And, whereas I've worked with a lot of amazing marketers who have worked for shitty companies and done amazing marketing work because they had to. There was no easy, like, put a link on the Google homepage and be done with it, or pick your favorite brand, right? They actually had to work hard to figure out how the hell to drive growth. So, just thinking through not just, experience and skills, but that idea of disposition and what real experience does someone bring? And of course, how do you empower people and elevate them to realize their performance? Like, how are you managing, leading, coaching, training, developing people? Again, small companies, you're managing with what you've got, but as you think about the culture and how you want to build your team in the future, performance and training and coaching, those are things to think about from day one. Here's I'm going to play this video. I'm hoping it works. Let me stop share. Okay. Share sound. Okay, good. This is a short video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's just to bring this point home, which is everyone kind of brings different things to work.
Creativity is the essential ingredient that fuels our future. Yet creativity is elusive. It can be hard to grasp. We have made creativity tangible, so you can grab hold of it and use it. We have broken creativity down into 5 fundamental behavioral archetypes: the stimulator, the spotter, the sculptor, the selector, and the supporter. How are you creative?
As a stimulator, I always have a lot of ideas buzzing into my head. I sometimes find it hard to focus on just one thing and much prefer exploring the world around me. I'm a bit of a sponge and love absorbing whatever comes my way. So if you need a fresh perspective or want to push the possibilities beyond the obvious, then I'm the one to call.
I know I'm a spotter, because my mind is like a radar, searching for exciting opportunities. To you, I might look distracted, but my head is busy making new and surprising connections from everything going on. I'm curious to discover what lies below the surface, and am constantly on the lookout for hidden treasures. The things I see are not always obvious to others, and I like that. I see potential where others may not.
I am a sculptor, and I love making ideas happen. I take abstract thinking and make it concrete. I am motivated by creating tangible solutions that work, and by shaping and polishing ideas so they truly shine. Telling compelling stories is how I bring people with me and help them see what I see. I'm a big believer that the devil lies in the detail, and relentlessly aim to make good things great.
Okay, so I am a selector. It is in my nature to make decisions. I want to select the strongest solution and find the best way forward, regardless of the task or the challenge. If I understand what you are trying to achieve, just present me with the options and I will give you clarity as to which way to head. I don't judge. Instead, I imagine the future implications and let this act as the guiding light.
As a supporter, my mission is to create a fertile ground where others can thrive and reach their goals. Whenever change is in the air, I see it as my role to help those around me feel comfortable about being uncomfortable, so they can embrace the uncertainties that inevitably lie ahead. I am big on empathy, and know that a soft touch is the magic ingredient that often leads to hard-hitting results.
Everyone is creative, in different ways. Your creative ID pinpoints your creative strengths. It helps you discover your hidden talents.
All right, so that's representative of what I'm talking about, which is you can't, you might not be able to hire perfect people, but you can create perfect teams. And perfect teams are made up of different skills and capabilities and dispositions and attitudes and intentions. And that when you hire someone to your team, it's really important to think through, what is it that they're going to be able to bring to the table that's the most valuable for you and your team and your company at the stage that you're at. Let me go back here. All right. Make sense? Alignment is probably a bigger issue for larger companies. I'm going to call that out. But thinking through how are you going to structure teams internally, formally, informally? How do you align together to support customers, each other, and other teams, especially under this umbrella of the, of the 7 A's? Each A doesn't have a clear set of teams necessarily within a functional structure. And so sometimes it does require some conversation about who are the right people to be on A4, the A4 team, the virtual team, the Scrum team, however you want to think about it. How are you going to pull together the highest performing teams on the highest impact goals? You know, do we need other cross-functional organizations to get work done? Again, larger companies, if you're 3 to 5 people, you kind of know who's doing what. But as you scale and think about your organization over time, this is an important one. And you know, there's customer-led teams, like the direct informal teams, like there's marketing and product and whatever, or you can have these indirect or scrum teams that I talked about, where like, okay, you've got like a handful of, you know, 2-3 people working on customer acquisition, A4 or adoption. And then, you know, how do you think about setting those priorities across those teams? Are you using OKRs? Are there KPIs that you're giving those teams so that regardless of which function they're in, everyone's aligned behind the same set of priorities? And then how do you set priorities, right? This concept of, you know, 1 through N priorities, you know, you've heard this before, like, you know, you start with the big rocks and then you put in the pebbles and then you put in the sand and then you put in the water. Like, what are your big rocks that have to go into the jar first? And is everyone on, you know, in these cross-functional teams aligned around that? We talked about decision-making, getting things done within the team and with others, creating habits. This is a big one for me because I know from experience, and, you know, everyone kind of does this differently, but for a small or a large company, when you're presenting something, it's very easy to like start from scratch and go like, okay, I gotta create this presentation, and you got writer's block and it takes you forever to get something done. As opposed to if you create a template for like, this is how we're going to communicate and do things around QBRs, right? A lot of people invent the QBR agenda, and it could be with your board meeting agenda, it could be your staff meeting agenda, but everyone sort of like sits down and comes up with a unique agenda for every time. But the more you can standardize and templatize things like that aren't important, like the content's more important than the process, the more you can standardize the process, the easier it is for people to prepare things. I'll give you maybe a heavy example, but we used to meet with our CRO and CFO every Friday. And the meeting was led by the CRO. And so the CRO, you know, he would show up and he would have some kind of an agenda, and everyone's just like on their heels reacting to whatever like issue he sees in the dashboard. And this went on for, this was at Malwarebytes a couple of years ago. This went on for about a month. And I was like, this is insanity. Like, we look clueless, we're reactive, we're frustrated and scared, and often get our wrists slapped for something that we didn't even know we had done. And like, this is out of control. So we took control and we created a routine where we, on Thursdays, would meet for 30 minutes, go through a dashboard that we had agreed to. We walked through what are, you know, each of the rows in that dashboard, what's contributing to revenue growth, what's not, and where are we at. A simple 30-minute meeting every single week. We then turned that conversation, those insights from those final metrics, and wrote an email that we sent to everybody who was attending the Friday meeting. And then that became the talking points for the Friday meeting. So we would go in there proactively and say, here are the numbers, here's what's working and why we think it's working. Here's what's not working and why we think it's not working. And more importantly, what we're going to do about it. That simple step turned a 2-hour meeting into a 30-minute conversation every single week. And a 30-minute conversation that was way more productive than otherwise. And so it's just one example. And again, this is true for a small company or big company, of taking something that was a routine that we just made a little bit better. But because we did it every single week, we practiced it every single week, we got a little bit better every single week. It completely transformed how we were measuring the business. And more importantly, like the ratio of conversation, preparation, analysis, frustration, confusion, to actual decision making and impact. And so that's like, I'm a huge fan of routines. And I think that's because I was a swimmer, right? You're in the pool and you're just swimming back and forth all the time. And, you know, you're perfecting certain things so that when you are in the race, you don't think about it. That's kind of the goal of good routines. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about here. Like the more you can make those sort of boring things standardized and not have to be like this big single task. And so as you start your companies and you're building companies, you know, because you're so busy doing things, you aren't putting time into doing things a little bit more efficiently. And I'm not talking about process. I'm not really literally not suggesting that you should be overladen with process. I'm just saying there are things that you're already doing. There's decisions that you make, but because you don't have a process for making the decision, it's messy probably and dirty and frustrating and not as fast and quick and impactful and effective potentially too. So, you know, what are those soul-sucking routines that are already are happening, and how do you like kill them, or how do you streamline them? But again, this is all about intentionality. Like, are you thoughtful about the routines that you have, or are they just sort of, yeah, we have a weekly staff meeting, we all kind of show up, sometimes late, sometimes we have an agenda, sometimes we don't. Just ends up wasting your time and other people's time. So just be thoughtful about what routines you create and how you run them. There's two, I'm going to share this deck with you, by the way, afterwards. So there's some links in here that you can click and look at later. And of course, all the reading is in here. This is an old one, but it's about how do you design an operating cadence for a company. The first one specifically for B2B. So maybe for your B2C folks, it's not as relevant, but it's just a way to think about intentionality of routines and cadences for operating a business. And then Gokul's got this spade toolkit for making decisions that you might find helpful. So take a look at that. Culture is how will we elevate play, purpose, and potential. So I talk about metrics that matter. If you think about human behavior and performance, everyone thinks that the best way to motivate someone is to give them more money or the opportunity to make more money, but that's not actually true. There's intrinsic motivators that are far more powerful than extrinsic motivators. Extrinsic motivators being fear or cash, intrinsic being play, purpose, or potential. I'll play a quick video on that soon. But what are you gonna choose as a company to high-five each other for, to celebrate, to recognize and reward your people for? Or what are you gonna punch each other in the arm for? Like someone did this thing and you're like, come on, man, and you punch them in the arm because, it's a friendly punch. But it's to, just culturally, are you aligned on what is important, what's good? What do you want to see more of and what do you want to see less of? But it also, to me, includes the quantitative performance, the actual metrics. We are going to celebrate retention rates because that means that everyone from sales and to marketing and product and engineering and design has all done a great job of creating and keeping a customer. Or is it something else? But like we are going to celebrate revenue growth because that's important for our board and our funding and all those things, right? So it's qualitative and quantitative things that go into this. So let me play this short video.
Less than a third of Americans are engaged in their work, and they now spend less than 4.5 years on average at a company before jumping ship. Unhappy employees mean inferior products and services, which mean unhappy customers and a mediocre bottom line. But if you can keep employees excited, engaged, motivated, or whatever you want to call it, everything else will follow. For decades, research has proven that culture drives performance. So many companies have turned to copying what others do. GE instituted forced ranking, and many followed suit. Netflix offered unlimited vacation time. Others did the same. Apple outfitted geniuses with blue polos and lanyards in open layout stores. And you can guess what other electronics retailers did. The trends have changed, but the approach hasn't. And unfortunately, neither has the outcome. Copying the cultures of other successful businesses hasn't worked. But why? We know that culture matters. Engaged workers do perform better. What we're less sure about is how. How does a ping pong table help an engineer code faster? Motivation experts Lindsay McGregor and Neil Doshi combed through decades of academic research and conducted their own proprietary surveys and found the missing link: our motives. Why we work determines how well we work, and culture shapes our why. Culture drives motives, and motives drive performance. Let's look at some of the research, shall we? Amazon's Mechanical Turk marketplace offers people small sums of money to complete simple tasks. Two professors wanted to see if they could get people to try harder by making mundane tasks more meaningful. They had one group of workers label circles on a series of images that would later be discarded. At least that's what they told them. Another group was told that the circles were likely cancerous cells. Each was paid a few cents per image processed. Which group do you think performed better? The meaning group processed 20% more images, with 10% more accuracy than their peers. The why changed the how well.
So this is, a lot of proven psychology here in action, but the key idea is simply that, thinking about culture, is really important, and what you reward people for, what you incentivize people for, is really important. And of course, everyone needs a base salary that they are comfortable with, and a bonus structure. And of course, there is some reward that people are looking for, reason to join your company to begin with, right? They are looking for an exit, or they're looking for some impact on the world. But in terms of the performance part itself, it is the impact on the world part that drives people more, is more likely to drive performance than, giving them a 10% higher bonus or something like that. So I was just thinking through like the qualitative side of performance. Hard metrics that might matter, this is from my consumer days, but reach, retention, revenue, resources, like DAUs, daily active users, the ratio of daily active users to monthly active users, or 7-day retention, 30-day retention, revenue. Everyone knows that one, but what's the ROI on people or programs or platforms? So those are just some metrics to think about. And then, across the 7 A's. So, a metric could be a number, a percentage, or it could be a yes, no. So, do we have A1 segment definition done? Yes or no? Do we have differentiated positioning? Yes or no? Or valued by consumers? Yes, we do, or no, we don't. What is our unaided awareness, for example, for amplification? Are we getting high quality leads for A4? Or what's the conversion rate from the website visitor to a lead? A5, it could be percentage of users deployed, right? If you got 100 users, but only 2 of them deploy, like, oh, that's a problem. Net retention, net promoter score, like those are some quantitative metrics to think about. So I'm mindful of time here and wrapping things up. The reason that this program is designed this way is so that, because I saw some of the questions and I know I haven't answered them, but there's a reason for it, which is, the first step here is just, here are the frameworks. It's an overview. I'm going to send you the deck so that you can read the deck and internalize it. One of the resources, I actually just started a 7-part series on my newsletter on LinkedIn that I published this morning, the first one. And I'll, in parallel to the workshops here, I'm going to actually publish those on LinkedIn as well. But they go deeper into these frameworks, so you have that as a resource. But the office work, is between now and the 16th is the homework assignment. And that's what I'm here for. So rather than me giving, sort of these generic answers to the frameworks, which I have, I want to make myself available to you. So if you have a specific question about any A and how it's relevant to you, we can do that via email, we can do that via WhatsApp, or we can schedule time if necessary. But I want to make sure that I'm not just sort of giving you, generic answers. So I want to work with you on that. So that's what the office work part is. And then the homework assignment, like I said, that's due on the 20th. That's where you audit the customer journey to find and remove friction, and start leaning into like, what are you going to do? So the homework in all of this, I don't want you to pick all the A's. You're welcome to pick 2 or 3, but more important than the work itself is the using of the tool and the framework and applying it. So I think Olsen and I have talked about this, rather than kind of giving you a very overwhelming homework exercise to do with your entire team, my specific suggestion to you is pick one of the A's that you want to do the assignment on, and then let's just get started. And I'm going to guide you through the process. I'm going to email you along the way with, here's where you should be. This is where you should be doing. If you need me, here's where you can find me. And then when we get together, we'll do a readout. So the first step is pick one of the A's. And I have a Google Doc template for this that I'll be sharing with you. And you want to meet with either the right team or your entire team, depending on your size and who you got working on this. If you're small, I suggest you could probably do it all together. If you're 3 to 5 people, you should probably pick one A and do it all together. If you're larger, I actually don't know who's got the largest team here, but you might want to just say, okay, we're going to do A4, and so it's going to be me, the founder, and then the CMO and the head of sales, and we're going to do A4. But you want to do an audit, which is where are we today? What are the metrics that matter? What are we doing? What is the inventory of current initiatives, activities that are currently underway? What's working, what's not working? It's a conversation, but the data is put into the Google Doc template, and it's just a data dump. You're not expected to write prose and perfect English and sentences. It's, you can do it however you want. Just get content into the doc, because the next step after that is where you say, okay, for A4, if that's what you chose, you start getting into and this doesn't have to be clean and perfect either. Like it's a one pager here, but by the time you're done, this could be, 100 bullets, and could bleed like 2 or 3 pages deep, which is okay, because the next step after that would be, okay, of all the things that we've said we could potentially preserve, strengthen, or transform, because of how it might be created, it might be created like with a very tactical level and a very strategic level. You'll make an assessment after you've looked at all of it, and you'll bold or highlight, these are the things across all of this, within this matrix that we're actually going to focus our time and effort on. So it's a building process. So step 1, understand the frameworks, internalize them, stew on them. Step 2, pick one of the A's to focus on. Step 3, go into the Google Doc and do the audit. The next step after that is the completion of this. And then the last step is, between office hours and everything, we'll get you ready for the conversation on May 23rd. I'll show one more thing before we go, but this will be in the doc. Here's my email, here's my SMS or WhatsApp. You can find me on LinkedIn. And then this link at the bottom here is part 1 of the Igniting Customer-Led Growth email series, newsletter series that I just started, and I'll go into it. Let me share one final thing with you. which is the actual template itself that will also be sent. All right, here we go. Zoom, share screen. So this doc here has all the frameworks and questions and everything that I've just walked through. The link is, it links to this, it deep links to this section here, which is, first make a copy of the doc. So don't start writing in this one. Make your own copy. And then, just start putting in the metrics that matter, inventory of what's working, or the list of things underway. Put in whoever can, share it with your team, and anyone can write what's working, what's not working as a first step. And then you start populating the preserve, strengthen, transform for the Spark. And that will look something like this. I shared this earlier. So this is A1 for EDB. We had the team. We had content about where we are today. We had inventory. Again, someone went in there, different people, and just wrote bullets for what are we doing today. And then anyone can go in and start writing what's working and what's not working. And then people on the team went into the doc again and just started writing in, under preserve strategy. Oh, there's nothing to preserve under strategy. But we could understand our understanding of customer motivations and behaviors. That's a strengthen. Or we should bring in an outside-in view of the market for our customers under strategy for A1, customer insights, right? Transform is how do we obtain customer data information pain points? Like how we go about that needs to be transformed. We don't have a good process for it. We have a person for it. We need to transform where we store the data and information. We need to transform. So we went through this exercise. We did it for people. We did it for alignment, for routines and culture. And then the final output from all of this. One last example before I let you guys go. This is it happens to be A2, but there's a lot of words and a lot of sentences and a lot of bullets in this. But as part of the homework process, people went in and bulleted or bolded or highlighted of all the things what was really important. And this was one important one, from product-driven selling and marketing to solution consulting selling. This is under positioning, by the way. Elevating the value of our portfolio beyond Oracle Compact, comparison, and Postgres. So we were very feature, speeds, and feeds oriented in our positioning, and we wanted to reposition towards value. So that's how the tool gets used. So now the next steps are, I'll send very clear instructions. I'll send documentation. I'll send very clear instructions. And then I'm sure I've given you lots to think about here, and you might still be unclear on what you need to do. I'm here, so you can contact me, email me, and I'll guide you through this process. But step one is pick an A. And then step two is make a copy of the auditing 7A's questions and start answering those questions about, for the A that you've chosen, where are we today? Where have we been? Where are we going? What's working? What's not working? And then that will become the foundation for your homework assignment. That went a little bit longer than I wanted, but we're on time.
We are right on time. Yeah.
I said that because I would have liked to give you 5 minutes or something at the end here. All right, so instructions are coming, emails are coming. If you're on the assignment, please ping me and we'll follow up. I'm here for you.
Thanks, Dariusz. And all this information is on our platform, including the template. And we our node buddy, as he's been called, Scott, also added the direct link there. But thank you so much, Dariusz. I know there's a lot of information and a lot, but like you said, you follow up with some instructions and people pick, you know, like the conversations you and I have had in terms of like not overwhelmingly homework, but at least picking one. And then it becomes much more interactive on the 23rd when we meet up. And thanks for being available for questions in between, Dariusz. I appreciate that.
Always.
I know you have I know some people have meetings. I know we have ourselves, and some people have to hop to mentor meetings as well. But and I know you also have a little bit of a hard stop. So appreciate it, and thank you so much. And you have everyone's email address, so you can reach out there, and we'll post the recording and everything in the node as well. With that, I'm actually going to stop the recording.
Awesome. Hey.